can start our little session if you'd like to do that. So let's take 3 conscious breaths together. And the deep in breath. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, now let's see if I can get our screen sharing to work. There we go. Second tier circle, May 31st. No religion. No religion. Just peace and the birds. Instead of our idea of religion. We're going to talk about a void mind again. Remember the verse which he would like to discuss. Do work of all kinds with a mind that is void, and to the voidness surrender all the fruits. Eat the food of voidness as the holy ones do. You live died to yourself from the very start. We're going to finish up the session on surrendering the fruits of our action to the voidness, and then we'll look at who the holy ones are. Turns out they're probably us, but we may not recognize that. Surrender the fruits. So isn't it interesting that in the Christian Bible, St. Paul advises us to let those who have wives live as though they had none? Isn't that interesting? And those who mourn as though they were not mourning. I think this was kind of surprising when we saw it last week, wasn't it? I think what he's getting at here is the difference between having a husband or having a wife and feeling in possession of one. And those who get so attached to their mourning that they can never let it go. Let those who mourn as though they were not mourning. And those who rejoice as though they had no goods. Oh, hi, Della. How are you? I see Della has joined us. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Steve.
Good. So here's St. Paul talking to us from the Bible. And those who rejoice as though they had no goods. Oh, I don't know about you, but I can remember Christmases when I was a kid. And I went out there under the Christmas tree at 3 a.m. before anybody got up to check out what Santa Claus brought me. And oh, did I rejoice when I saw the goods that were there for me. And then, of course, I went back to bed because I had strict orders not to wake my parents up before 7 or 8 o'clock. And when the hour struck, I woke them up and then rejoiced over the goods. And those who deal with the world as though they had no dealings with it, interact with the world. Buddhadasa has something to say about this. He says, if you have a wife, don't attach to having her. If you have a husband, don't cling to having him. So what's this difference between having and clinging? We're going to look at that. If you have a painful or sorrowful experience, don't cling to it as I or mine. Oh, this happened to me. Let me tell you about my pain. And it will be as if it never happened if you don't cling to it. Clinging. So we'll look at that. Don't attach to joy, goods, and worldly dealings either. I was so attached to my joy at getting those Christmas presents. One time I got a fountain pen, which I really wanted. I remember my joy at getting that fountain pen. And one Christmas, I got a model train set. And there's a story in my family that my father put together the model train set. I sat on a couch reading a book, and my father played with the model train set. I like reading books, and he loved the trains. So he was into the joy of the model train. Don't attach to it. Those of us who follow St. Paul's advice, we can go on as if nothing had happened. That kind of suffering doesn't happen to us. We remain fine. This is where we ended last week. If we follow St. Paul's advice. Unfortunately, the fact is that, whatever their religion, most people are dominated by these things. They let themselves suffer intolerably over such matters. Having things. I saw the show, I think it was last night or the night before, on Hedy Lamarr. Have any of you seen that on public television?
No.
She was an amazing woman. She just happened to be beautiful, but that wasn't who she was. And she used her beauty to make money in a career as an actress. And of course, Hollywood exploited her, only gave her dumb beauty roles and gave her methamphetamines, what you call it, in the mornings to keep her going, and sleeping pills at night. So like Judy Garland and a lot of the stars, she became addicted. Anyway, it turns out that she was a scientist as well. And she did it in her spare time. You know, she invented the protocol that's used in our Wi-Fi we're using right now, Wi-Fi signals. She even helped Howard Hughes design an airplane wing. Who knew that?
Wow.
Who knew that? So I have no idea where I'm going with this line of thought. But something stimulated it. Now I remember. Hetty had many facelifts when she was older. She was attached to her beauty and how she looked. And the facelifts disfigured her face. She was so attached to her beauty.
Well, I think sometimes we pick one aspect of our life that could be transitional and make it who we are, and we miss the whole rest.
Yes, she was married 6 times, Hedy Lamarr, and none of them really appreciated the person she really was. They were just all attracted to her as a beauty. So she suffered some by not being able to experience who she really was. That's the best I can come up with.
Yeah,
So,
we all have a lot of depth that sometimes we don't see. We define people as shallow. You just think of one thing or one person and miss the rest.
Yes. So Buddhadasa goes on, he says, however, we who look at things differently can buy things without the I taking them home. We can buy things without the I taking them home, which means we never get attached to what we buy and take home. So that's the challenge. The things we buy, can we not get attached to them and we take them home? We'll do a little exercise in a bit and see if any of us have any of our stuff that needs to be looked at. We bought it, he says, we brought it home, but it's like we didn't buy anything because we didn't give birth to the thought that we possess something. We possess it. There is a difference between having things around you and feeling this attachment, possession, they're mine. This idea of there's a self, there's me separate from you, and this is my stuff, and that's your stuff. And I have certain rights with regard to my stuff. In other words, as it works in the family setting, my wife, for example, everything she has is hers, and everything I have is hers as well.
Yep. I understand that.
That works.
So, if
But
we
you
can,
understand that, so it works fine, huh?
so we can have a more lighthearted attitude towards our stuff. That's where we're going. We don't give birth to the thought we possess something. In fact, this passage has the same meaning as do work of all kinds with a mind that is void. Do work, purchasing, getting things. And to the voidness, surrender all the fruits. So as we get things, surrender the fruit of having gotten stuff to the voidness. Which, of course, many Buddhists don't understand as well as many of us. I think I have a little exercise next, so that if we have a mind to, we can take a look at our own stuff and
Before
see.
you go on,
Yes.
can I ask you a quick question? On the bottom of this slide, which of course many Buddhists don't understand either, is that referring to the continuation of learning this practice?
In the Buddhist tradition,
Yeah.
one should do work of all kinds with a mind that is void.
Right.
And to the voidness, surrender all the fruits. That would be part of the Buddhist teaching. And he says, just as in the Christian tradition, people don't understand St. Paul's teaching, the Buddhists don't understand the same teaching in their tradition.
Thank you.
Okay.
In other words, we're all human, whatever our religious traditions. So even though in our spiritual traditions, we are told to not attach ourselves to stuff and rather attach ourselves to our spiritual essence. We don't. We're attached to stuff. Except for us, of course. Well, we're going to see. I have a little exercise in mind, which I thought might be fun. Are we ready? Here we go. Let's consider some of the things that we have. Now I made a list. You can add anything you want to this list. House, clothes, money, jewelry, things we have, car, bicycle. I put bicycle in because Sam likes to bike and I like to bike and I have a new bicycle. So I have a bicycle.
Ooh.
And we've gone bicycling together. We went on the C&O Canal, the C&O Canal, right? And the W&OD Trail. We biked and I have a bike. We have furniture. We have art or artwork. Some of the things we have. We have friends. We have lovers. If we're still able to do the task, we have mates.
Mm.
We have family. We have a body. We have a soul, life. We have fingernails. Just some things we have to perhaps stimulate you. And you may think of some other things you have.
What about ideas and or like identity? That certainly can be an attachment too.
Our identity, yes. Our lower self, our ego,
Right.
Add that to the list.
Mhm.
So now what we need to do to have the exercise be meaningful for us is to focus on one or even two of the things you have, which at this moment have some energy. Some of the things may not have any energy. For example, for Hedy Lamarr, money had no energy. She didn't give a darn about it. Sometimes she had a lot of it, and sometimes she didn't have any at all, but it had no energy for her. So what among those things or what you've added has some energy? In other words, there could be a strong emotion associated with not having that thing, those things. Could be a strong emotion. Or to say it another way, you aren't willing right now to let that thing go. You wouldn't be willing to let it go. Got it? So now that you know the kind of things you're looking for yourself, let's look at the list again briefly and see if anything pops up for you or something you've added. Your house, is there a charge there? Clothes, money, your bank account, a jewelry, your job, your car. That one always has energy for me. Bicycle, furniture, art, friends, lovers, me, your family, body, soul, your life or ego, fingernails, hair. So if you've picked one that has some energy, keep in your mind the thing or things you've come up for you just now. And at this point, you may wish to take a nice deep breath and close your eyes. Sometimes I find it helpful in these exercises to use our hands to help open us up. So you may wish to put your hands in your lap or on the desk and let the palms face upward with your eyes now gently closed. Now I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. And we'll do it out loud and then silently. I think it's better if we just repeat it to ourselves. So repeat it silently to yourself. Having without possessing. 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 Focusing on those things in your life, just repeat that simple phrase to yourself again 3 times. Om. That's the exercise. It's just a simple exercise. I use this phrase myself most every morning as part of my spiritual practice. And usually the same things I have come up, where there's some energy possessing it, unwillingness to let go, sometimes different things. Does anyone would like to share anything or have any questions before we go on?
I think the thing that came to mind is whatever it is that I'm attached to, it's not the thing, it's the feeling that it gives me. So I guess that tells you that you can go to that feeling without the possession.
So there's a feeling or an emotion that is associated with a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the attachment. That feeling or emotion may be just in your head, but that feeling or emotion may be somewhere else in your body, your throat, your shoulders, someplace, your tummy. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, the thing or your idea of it has an attachment with the strength of a feeling to some part of your body, perhaps. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, mine are, I think of the things that I don't want to part with, and they're paintings that my father did, something that belonged to my brother. The people that I used to have in my life that I don't have now. And I want to touch this. I want to look at this because it brings back a smile and a warmth. And I don't want to let go of that.
Good. Any other shares or observations about this before we press on?
Steve, when I have a thought of or a memory, and the memory, let's say it's about a family experience that's pleasant, how do we use this presence process of having without possessing? I think sometimes there's, beautiful, positive, uplifting memories that I think helps to replace the negative ones in some sense. And so it's almost like replacing helps the having without possessing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Sam. That's a beautiful way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
These exercises and practices are not necessarily meant to change anything about our experience of life or who we are. Rather, it's to bring those things that we don't often think about into focus, so we can look at them and say, wow, that's something I treasure, and I'm going to keep that in a special place as I treasure it. Or something may come up and you may notice at this point in your spiritual journey, oh my goodness, that's not serving me. That's not serving me. And just by the awareness of something that's not serving you, you've begun the process of lightening up and having that thing that you possess no longer possess it so much, and allowing your wife to possess it instead of you. So it's the awareness that is the path we're looking for. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yeah, I think so. So what I'm hearing is that the self-awareness, once we get to that point, to then let go that it's possessing me at the moment. It's the passageway to the liberation, if you will.
I heard you say though, and this is the point, having without possessing. The possession is it's possessing you.
Yes, right.
When you're attached to it, it's possessing you. You're not possessing it. And we don't really want that.
Yeah,
That's a good distinction.
So if we notice something that we're not willing to let go or seems to be possessing us, we can just be aware of that and say, wow, isn't that interesting? I guess I'm not ready yet to let that go. Wow, that's interesting. And move on. All right, great shares. Thank you. So let's move on to eat the food of voidness. And then Buddhadasa talks about. If you earn $1 million from your work and store it in the bank, that's where I put my $1 million. How about you folks? I don't have it at home here. I don't have a secret vault in the back of my house where I can open the door like Scrooge McDuck and dive in and swim amongst my money. It's in the bank. If you earn $1 million from your work and store it in the bank, offer it to the voidness. Offer it to the voidness. And don't think it's mine, it belongs to me. My goodness, this is disruptive, isn't it? Here we are in America looking for the pursuit of happiness, which for a lot of people is getting things. Getting things means you got to have money. So we get the money and it's mine, and then I can get my stuff. Offer it to the voidness. Don't think it's mine, it belongs to me. So another way of holding money. Now, our minds, we know how they work. if we create a voidness in the mind, something wants to jump in there and fill that voidness. So Buddhadasa says, offer it to the voidness. Don't think it's mine, it belongs to me. But I would suggest we need to put something else in there so that an unwelcome attitude towards the money wouldn't return. So what we can use, instead of saying the money is mine, it belongs to me, we can say it belongs to God. It's not really money, it's just energy, and so on. Different ways of detaching from its mind.
I think the statement is having without possessing, which allows you to keep that money in the bank. I mean, you don't have to empty out your bank and not have it, but don't let it possess you, I suppose, or talk about it being as my money. It's something that you have custody of, and it's okay to have custody of it.
It is. Yeah, it's not my money, it's the bank's money. They just let me take some out now and then.
Gracious that they are.
When you spend the money, do so with the same void mind. Simply use the money to buy food to eat or whatever you need to consume. Just simplicity. Mind is void, it's there. Buy some food, whatever you need to consume. That is what is meant by eat the food of voidness as the holy ones do. Eat the food of voidness as the holy ones do. So that's what's meant by that. In this line, holy ones means those who understand deeply and have no attachments. Simple as that. So a holy one is someone who understands deeply. How do we understand deeply? By being willing to be aware of. And just being aware of. Having the ability to have our thoughts and having learned how to step back from them when we choose to, particularly in meditation, so we can have the thoughts and just by stepping back, loosen up or lighten up our attachments. So to the extent we do that, we're as holy as anyone else. We are as holy as anyone else. We're holy ones. Holy ones is like a label, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other day, President Trump said something, and Vice President Biden responded by saying, oh, he's a fool for having said that. That's a label. And I wished Vice President Biden had said, instead of he's a fool, I wished he had said, oh, he did a foolish thing.
Yeah.
Even people who aren't fools can do foolish things.
Right.
So holy ones, we may have an idea of a holy one, and we're not that, but no. In this line, holy ones means those who have holy understandings now and then, understand deeply now and then have no attachments. We're in the process of holiness. It's a process, not a label. See that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not that we are holy ones or we're not holy ones. Rather, are we in the process? Do we sometimes do foolish things? That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do we sometimes have the ability to step back from our own minds and, in that sense, have a holy process that we're in? And in that moment, understand deeply and have lightened up our attachment. Letting go of labels is another step in the process of loosening up the I and the mind. I and mind. So if we're attached to labels, then we're attached to things like, oh, he's a fool. Oh, there's a holy one. I'm not a holy one. That's an I and mine thing, which, as we're going to see, is just a mental construct. We can be in the process. Sometimes we do foolish things, sometimes we do holy things. And that's what's real, not the labels which get attached somehow.
I noticed that in watching newscasters, there's an inordinate amount of name calling now, and it really it's pulling on me, because every time I hear that, I get this like physical attack, emotional attack. It makes me angry, and so that shows me my attachment to and my judgment. And I guess to be able to sit back and just observe is something to try to hold out as a goal, because it still just really makes me angry. And I don't need to do that. It's my being angry doesn't affect that.
Susan, I think you're right. I think the whole country is in many ways divided. And some things make some people angry, and those things make other people satisfied, same things.
Yeah.
And these are labels which have to do with I and mine. So we look at that label that's applied to someone, somehow we internalize it and say, oh, they is a separate they, and I as a separate I are not that. It makes me angry to hear that label applied. I wish I could do this, but I just thought of this now. Maybe when we hear these labels applied, and this applies to me, instead of internalizing the labels and getting angry, maybe we can convert the labels like, oh, he's a fool, and convert it to, oh, he did a foolish thing. So convert the label into a particular thing that was done, which doesn't necessarily characterize the person. I'm going to give that a try next time I get reactivated by these same labels. See what happens.
It's not even the label to me. It's a manipulation of the viewer by minimalizing the person you're talking about, by calling them a name, calling them something that there is not nice, just to give that picture to the viewer so they will go away thinking of somebody as less than who they are. And I guess all I can do is refuse to be manipulated. And of course, I'm not. I mean, that doesn't make me feel that way about something. If it really makes me angry at the newscaster that's trying to do that. So I'll have to work on that. Not to give away my energy.
Yes, Jan.
I was just going to say, Biden doesn't normally do that. Trump does it 100 times a day. So if he doesn't do that in response, people see him as weak and say, well, why doesn't he fight back? Things like that. And, you know, it's hard to find a middle ground when you're being constantly attacked by someone who's in power, you know, so I don't know.
I agree with you that Joe Biden has been called weak because he doesn't use the same tactics as President Trump. I've heard that as well.
And, you know, there was a legislator from Pennsylvania who was horribly enraged about what was going on in the legislature up there. And he just ranted and raved, but I could see why he was so angry. I mean, it was just unconscionable what they did by not reporting someone who had COVID, but they only reported it to the people on the committee who were Republicans. It didn't tell any of the Democrats that they were in danger. So, you know, it's just become so politicized, everything. I don't know.
It's interesting. What I observe is there is an attitude that if we can provoke the people with whom we disagree, that's going to be to our benefit.
And it weakens them. Yeah.
And it
That
weakens
is.
them. So we
Mhm.
see a lot of provocation going out there. And then as individuals, do we allow ourselves to be provoked, or does it seem to be out of our control? I would just suggest that it's interesting to observe in ourselves, oh, I'm feeling provoked right now.
Mhm.
And notice that. And instead of doing anything about it, even though the mind may crank away, so just keep in mind, oh, they tried to provoke me, and they did. Good job.
Yeah, I thank you for that. It's a way to hold it, to notice it. And right.
I've been provoked.
Righteous indignation is a tough one.
I'm righteously indignant, and I've been provoked.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. You got me.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a process, and Steve knows this very well. He brought the Be Peace process from Unity over 10 years ago, and that's the needs consciousness language. I really have a need for respect and careful consideration with regards to speaking about ourselves and to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that perhaps there's a sadness, perhaps a need to mourn. Yeah. And
That's
perhaps
profound.
go through.
Can you take us through some of that process? What do you do if you see something that is you've got a righteous indignation about something that just is so wrong?
Sure.
What
Yeah.
do you, I really appreciate that if that's okay with you guys.
So it's a 4-step process. The first step is to recognize, and this is the capital S self, to ask ourselves, that part is judgmental. What is that internal part telling myself? What's the story? What's the dialogue? What am I telling myself? That's the jackal statement. It's a derogatory statement about them, usually. Or it's a derogatory statement about us. So the jackal statement is what we have to flesh out first. And then from there, the second step the first step might be, so how could they? Right?
How could they?
Yeah, or whatever the jackal statement might be.
I guess I don't know what a jackal statement is.
It's a derogatory statement. It's a judgmental statement. It's an evaluation or an interpretation.
That somebody is directing toward you.
Your interpretation of what's going on.
Okay. All right.
And the second step is, what am I feeling in the body about my statement?
Okay.
Yeah. And the third is, what is the universal human need that I'm yearning for? Perhaps is respectful communications. Perhaps is more peaceful language. Perhaps it's more the loving consciousness, the loving kindness. Perhaps it's mutuality, equality. And then the fourth step is the request part, is how do I be the better example for others to follow? Perhaps it's right now it's just to turn off the TV.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, Steve brought this more than 10 years ago, and I just remember the steps, and I've been practicing off and on for 10 years, and I'm so grateful one day that I'm always asking Steve to bring it back.
Yeah. Thank
So anyway, I'm complete. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for allowing me to share.
That was really helpful. It's always nice to have something to do.
Well, thank you, Sam. You did a better job of explaining it than I would have done, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
So there are the 4 steps when we get reactivated, to notice what the thoughts are, positive, negative, The positive thoughts we can call giraffe thoughts, and the negative ones we can call jackal thoughts. And in the training for kids, they have little jackal stuffed creatures and giraffe stuffed creatures. So the kids can go use them to visualize the difference between positive and negative. And then we look at feelings, as Sam pointed out. Now, the feeling is not the feeling like I feel like doing this or I feel like that. No, the feelings are joy, sadness, happiness, anger, fear, exultation, those simple feelings. And learning the process of identifying how I'm feeling. I heard Susan was feeling some anger in a particular situation where there were some jackal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Then Sam pointed out to look at the underlying needs. What in my heart do I feel is a need that's either being satisfied because there's a giraffe thought, or not being satisfied because there's a jackal experience going on in my mind. And then the last part, as you pointed out, is the request. Not always something you request of others, because they may not be in a position where they're open to hear a request. That's a different process. But we can always request something of ourselves and see what comes up, see what request might be there. And if there is none, great. Just the process of going through the 4 steps helps to lighten things up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And there's a whole bunch of exercises like feelings and needs cards.
Mm-hmm.
And we incorporate heart math, the heart coherence part of it. It's really a beautiful synergy. So anyway, thanks for letting me share.
Mm-hmm. You live it, Sam. You're really such a great
I
example.
try. Whenever I turn on the TV, I don't live it. So I turn it off.
Yeah. Okay, well, you just jumped to step 4.
We're going to finish today with this slide. When we give all of the rewards of our work to voidness, they don't disappear as though having no goods. When we give the rewards of our work to voidness, they don't disappear as though having no goods. I lied, we'll do one more. Nothing is lost, physically and worldly terms. Everything is still there. One more. It's stored and protected in the usual ways, and the law still recognizes that it belongs to us. So that's the having aspect of it. If someone tries to snatch it away, we can battle to protect our rights in court, but always with the same void mind. So just an example of having doesn't mean you get run over, like being run over by a bus. No. We still have our stuff and do all the normal things, but somehow we can do it stepped back, just stepping back. So we don't get angry or upset, and we needn't suffer. We needn't get personally involved. And in the Buddhist way of looking at it, we needn't attach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's about 10:02. If we're willing, I'm going to stop the share now. The screen share, there we all are. And we're going to close. Any final comments or observations before we close today?
Yes, I have one comment. I think earlier you talked about when you possess things and they possess you, but at a fundamental level, the act of possession and the conceptualization of possession occurs at the level of the mind. It is not at the level of the thing that you think you possess. So in a way, nothing can possess you in the way that you think it can. It's only you think that you possess things with your mind.
Yes. You nailed it, Della. That's absolutely right. And if our minds think that we possess something, just having that observation, as you point out, oh, that's just my mind thinking that, is a path of loosening up the mind's control over us. So I think you got it.
Mhm.
Are you ready to close?
I was hoping to say something. Hello?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say this is my first time at a second tier class. I went to Unity Church once before, and I'm really happy that I came here this morning, and I'm happy to hear what you guys are saying. I share similar sensibilities with you all. And Sam, thank you for mentioning heart math. I'm a coach mentor for heart math.
Oh, welcome, Robert.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Welcome,
That's
Robert.
all I have to say this morning. Thank you, Stephen. Oh, I guess that's it.
Well, God bless. We appreciate what you have to say. And I will just repeat that the connection practice, the Be Peace practice, has two strong roots. One is the nonviolent communication aspect, which we talked about, and the second is the heart math, which needs to be incorporated throughout the process. So those two aspects. We'd like to close our session by making the sound of Om together to bring us deep down into our heart space, the heart math heart space. So let's take 3 conscious breaths together first. And with a deep in breath. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
Good week. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
God
guys.
bless. Enjoy the service. See you next week.